Hello and welcome to Workers Comp Unwrapped, the podcast that simplifies workers' compensation for physicians. So, let's get started. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 10 of Workers Comp Unwrapped, with Anik and Angela, who has 15 years of experience in the industry. Today, we are talking about medical legal cost management and how to navigate the latest fee schedule changes.
Yeah, and trust me, navigating is definitely the right word for it right now. It is, it's a complete minefield out there.
It really is. So, welcome everyone to today's deep dive. Right now, as we speak, millions of dollars are just, vanishing from company ledgers all across the country.
Poof, gone.
Literally gone. And it's not because of some catastrophic workplace accident, right? It's because someone typed an outdated, 4-digit code into a billing software system.
Which is mind-blowing when you think about it.
Right. So today, we've got this massive stack of source materials. We're talking industry transcripts, internal strategy memos, some really dense research notes. And our mission is to extract the hidden economics of workplace injuries.
And honestly, the economics are wild.
They are. Specifically, we are looking at medical legal cost management and the absolute shockwaves caused by the brand new 2026 fee schedule changes.
Which has pretty much turned the entire industry upside down.
Totally. So if you are listening right now, whether you're managing operational budgets or running risk in HR, or, I don't know, maybe you're just fascinated by these bizarre high-stakes financial systems, this is for you.
Yeah, because understanding these mechanics is, it's basically a massive shortcut to understanding modern operational efficiency.
Exactly. It shows what actually happens when human disagreement collides with rigid bureaucracy. But before we get into the absolute chaos of these 2026 rules, we really need to define the battleground.
Right, because a lot of people don't even know what we mean by medical legal costs.
Right. When we talk about this stuff in the workers' comp sphere, we are way beyond a standard, urgent care visit for a sprained ankle.
Oh, absolutely. Way beyond.
So for the industry folks listening, we know the basics, but what is the actual mechanism driving these costs so incredibly high?
Well, the underlying engine of these costs is it's friction. Medical legal costs are not generated by treatment at all. They're generated purely by disagreement.
Disagreement, like arguments over the claim itself.
Exactly. The mechanism is almost always an official dispute. So say there's a disagreement over causation, right? Did the employee tear their rotator cuff lifting heavy boxes in the warehouse, or did they do it playing softball over the weekend?
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. That's a huge distinction.
It's everything. Or maybe the friction is over the permanent disability rating. The treating physician says the worker has a 5% impairment, but the worker's legal counsel argues it's 40%.
That's a massive gap. And obviously, millions of dollars are riding on that difference.
Precisely. And the moment that friction hits the system, you can't just, ask another regular doctor to break the tie. You have to trigger these specialized independent medical evaluations.
Okay. Let's unpack this, because from what you're saying, these costs are essentially a dispute tax.
A dispute tax. I actually love that term.
Right. Because the moment everyone stops nodding in agreement, the meter starts running.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very expensive meter.
Oh, it's incredibly expensive. And it's not just a flat tax either. Structurally, it's more like a domino effect.
How so? Like one thing just knocks over the next.
Exactly. When a dispute arises, the system mandates this highly formalized evaluation process. So now you are paying for a specialized medical legal evaluator to not only examine the patient.
Already expensive.
Right, but they also have to review what could be thousands of pages of historical medical records.
Wait, thousands? Literally thousands of pages?
Oh, easily. I've seen files that look like phone books. And you're paying them to write this comprehensive, legally defensible report, and then, one side inevitably disagrees with that report.
Of course they do, because why wouldn't they?
Exactly, which then triggers legal depositions. So now you have the evaluator billing for their time to be deposed, you have transcriptionists, you have attorneys on both sides.
Just billing by the hour?
By the minute sometimes. A single disagreement over a shoulder injury can literally spawn 20 different billable administrative events.
Wait, I have to stop you there, because the mechanics of that sound absolutely terrifying from an operational standpoint. I mean, I understand that medical specialists and lawyers aren't cheap.
Not at all.
But how does that actually play out on a balance sheet? Is there no cap on this? It sounds like they could just bill indefinitely.
Well, prior to these recent regulatory shifts, the guardrails were honestly incredibly loose. Evaluators were often billing based on the subjective complexity of the case.
Subjective, so they just decided how hard it was.
Basically, yes. Or they billed based simply on the time they spent. If a doctor stated it took them 10 hours to review a massive file, they billed for 10 hours at a premium rate.
And no one checked if it actually took 10 hours.
Without stringent internal oversight from the employer or the insurance payer, no. Organizations were essentially writing blank checks to the dispute economy.
That's insane. It's literally a blank check.
It was wildly unpredictable, which is a total nightmare for any risk manager or CFO who's just trying to, set financial reserves for these claims.
Okay, which brings us to the massive regulatory intervention we are seeing right now, the 2026 fee schedule shakeup.
Yes, the shakeup.
So the industry authorities basically looked at this chaotic, subjective billing landscape and decided to forcefully impose order. The goal was to standardize everything.
That was the mandate. Yeah. The driving forces behind the 2026 fee schedule changes are standardization, predictability, and transparency.
Which all sound great, by the way.
Right. The regulators essentially stepped in and said, look, no more subjective hourly billing that fluctuates wildly from one clinic to the next. We are moving to a rigid, tiered structure.
Okay, but let me push back on this a bit, because on paper, standardization sounds like it should make everything easier, cheaper, and faster.
You would think so.
It's like standardizing USB ports, right?
Yeah.
We all want the same plug. It just makes the hardware work universally. So why are these source transcripts filled with, panicked risk managers and totally frustrated providers? Why is there so much friction?
Well, what's fascinating here is the massive gap between regulatory theory and operational reality. Yes, standardization is the utopian goal, but early adoption of a rigid system in a complex legacy industry, it is exceptionally messy.
Messy how? What did they actually change?
Well, the 2026 schedule didn't just update prices to match inflation, It completely rewrote the architectural logic of how a service is billed. They transitioned from time-based billing to flat fee complexity tiers.
Can you break down the mechanics of that? What does a flat fee complexity tier actually look like in practice?
Sure. So under the new 2026 rules, an evaluator billing for a comprehensive exam has to fit the service into a very specific box.
Oh, like a literal category.
Right. Let's say Tier 1 is a standard evaluation. It includes under 200 pages of medical record review, and it pays a fixed flat rate, period.
Got it. Simple enough.
But then Tier 2 is for complex evaluations. Maybe it involves multiple injured body parts or a psychiatric component, plus an allowance for reviewing up to 1,000 pages. That pays a higher flat rate.
Okay, still following.
But here's the catch. To bill for anything above that, you need highly specific, newly introduced modifier codes. And they have to be accompanied by signed attestations under penalty of perjury regarding the exact page counts reviewed.
Under penalty of perjury. Wow. Oh, I see. So the friction isn't just about the money itself. It's about the burden of proof.
Exactly. And providers are interpreting these new rigid boxes totally differently than the payers are.
Give me an example. How does that happen?
Okay, say a medical evaluator looks at a case involving a shoulder injury plus a secondary neck strain. They count 210 pages of records, so they bill it under the new Tier 2 complex code.
Makes sense. It's over 200 pages.
Right, but the insurance payer's automated system looks at the exact same claim, notes that the neck strain wasn't officially accepted as part of the initial dispute, and automatically kicks the page count allowance back down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it denies the Tier 2 billing entirely and just offers the Tier 1 rate instead.
So, ironically, the massive bureaucratic system that was designed to completely eliminate financial disputes
is now causing them.
Is currently generating a tidal wave of new financial disputes.
Precisely. And this is where the theoretical confusion we're talking about starts bleeding real dollars, because every time one of these new 2026 bills is contested, it triggers a formal objection process.
More paperwork.
More administrative time, and a complete freeze on the progression of the actual underlying injury claim.
And according to the sources we reviewed, the biggest culprit for this isn't even malicious non-compliance. It's the software.
No, absolutely. It's a tech failure.
Right. We are in 2026. Everything is automated. How is it possible that multi-million-dollar insurance payers and massive hospital networks are getting derailed by something as basic as an outdated software code? What is actually breaking in the background here?
It mostly comes down to API mismatches and the reality of legacy databases. See, the workers' comp industry relies on these massive clearinghouses.
Where are those exactly? Like digital middlemen?
Basically, yeah. They route the bills from the medical provider over to the insurance payer. But many of these clearinghouses and even the internal billing platforms of the hospitals themselves are hard-coded with legacy logic.
So they are still thinking in 2025 time-based logic, while the regulators are demanding 2026 tier-based logic.
Exactly. It's like they're speaking two different languages. Let's say a provider updates their internal system to the new 2026 codes. They send a perfectly compliant bill for a Tier 2 evaluation, complete with a new modifier code indicating a complex record review.
Okay, doing everything right.
Right, but that bill travels through an intermediary clearinghouse whose software hasn't fully mapped the new 2026 crosswalks.
Uh-oh, I see where this is going.
The software doesn't recognize the new modifier code, assumes it's a clerical error, and automatically strips the modifier off the digital file before sending it to the payer.
That is wild. It's like a translation app deciding to edit your sentence because it doesn't recognize a new slang word.
Right.
And suddenly you are telling someone you're a pineapple instead of hungry.
That's a perfect analogy. And so the payer receives this stripped-down bill that looks completely fraudulent, or at least improperly coded.
Which I'm guessing does not go over well.
No, it triggers an immediate automatic audit. And in the medical legal world, an improper code isn't just a typo you can fix with a quick phone call. It is the equivalent of pulling a fire alarm.
Seriously, a
Yeah.
fire alarm over a stripped code.
Absolutely. Even unintentional use of the wrong codes or codes altered by legacy software triggers severe compliance audits.
And what are the actual mechanics of an audit at that scale? Because I imagine it's more than just a strongly worded letter.
Oh, it is a complete disruption of operational flow. An automatic audit often freezes all pending payments to that specific provider from that payer.
Wait, all payments, not just the one in dispute.
Frequently, yes.
Yeah.
Everything halts. The provider's administrative staff has to drop whatever they are doing. They have to pull the original physical or digital records, generate the original sworn attestations, cross-reference the exact page counts.
It's like a nightmare.
It is. They have to manually submit this massive data package to an external auditor. And keep in mind, these external auditors are often financially incentivized to find discrepancies.
Of course they are, because why wouldn't they be? That is a staggering amount of wasted human capital. You're literally paying a premium purely for the privilege of having slow, outdated software somewhere in your supply chain.
It is literally a tax on bad administration.
That's exactly what it is, a tax on incompetence.
Yeah.
But wait, while all these algorithms are fighting and administrators are pulling thousands of pages of records, what happens to the injured worker? The actual human being at the center of this.
That is the most critical collateral damage in this entire transition. The ripple effects of these coding disputes include massive, massive delays in claims resolution.
Because the paperwork is frozen.
Right. Medical legal evaluations are usually the linchpin for moving a claim forward. If the evaluator's bill is frozen in an audit dispute, the evaluator may delay releasing the final medical report until the billing friction is resolved.
So the injured worker might be sitting in limbo, waiting on an approval for a necessary surgery or a final disability settlement purely because an API stripped a modifier code from an invoice.
Exactly. Real people are suffering real consequences because of software glitches.
That's incredibly controversial, honestly.
Yeah.
It feels like the system prioritizes algorithmic compliance over actual healthcare.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if outdated systems and mismatched APIs are the root of this massive financial bleed, how do organizations successfully build a strategic defense?
Well, they have to adapt.
Right. The transcripts outlined a few approaches, and they range from heavy technological investments to surprisingly old-school tactics.
Right.
Let's talk about how companies are actually surviving this 2026 landscape.
The overarching strategy is acknowledging that passive management is just no longer an option. You cannot wait for the bill to arrive to verify compliance.
You have to get ahead of it.
Exactly. The first strategic pillar we are seeing successful organizations adopt is ruthless internal selectivity. They are establishing incredibly clear, strict guidelines for when these medical legal services are actually necessary in the first place.
Meaning they aren't just reflexively ordering a comprehensive medical legal evaluation the second a minor disagreement pops up.
Precisely. Under the old system, if there was a slight disagreement over, say, a work restriction, the default move was often just to trigger the medical legal process.
Because it was easy, and they didn't realize how much it was costing them.
Right. Now, risk managers are realizing the administrative cost of that process is way too high. They are utilizing peer-to-peer physician reviews or relying more heavily on the primary treating physician's reports to settle minor disputes.
You have to stop treating the most expensive, highly regulated option as your default operational response.
Exactly. Be selective.
And the sources also highlighted the importance of vendor networks, which makes total sense. If the ecosystem is a minefield of bad software, you want to surround yourself with people whose software actually works.
It's all about building a walled garden. Large payers and employers are aggressively auditing their own networks to identify which medical providers and legal evaluators have successfully transitioned to the 2026 fee schedule.
They want the A team.
They want to work exclusively with partners who actually understand the new tier structures, whose software maps the codes correctly, and who attach the mandatory attestations on the first try.
And if they don't?
If a provider's front office is consistently disorganized and triggering audits, they are being cut out of the preferred networks entirely.
Wow. Okay, so narrowing the network is the relationship side of the defense. Let's look at the tech approach. For the massive enterprise organizations, the ones handling tens of thousands of claims, they are deploying some serious analytical firepower to catch these issues.
Oh, the tech is fascinating. Advanced analytics act as a proactive radar system. Massive organizations are feeding historical billing data and the new 2026 parameters into predictive algorithms.
So they aren't just looking for typos.
No. They are looking for behavioral anomalies across vast data sets. They can identify a specific clinic that seems to suddenly be billing, say, 40% of all its evaluations under the highest possible complexity tier, whereas the industry average is only 10%.
So they flag the outlier before the check is even cut.
They flag the outlier and they intercept the process through automated pre-authorization. In a fully optimized system, the exact billing codes, the anticipated page counts, and the specific tiers are negotiated and locked in digitally before the injured worker even steps foot in the evaluator's office.
Which totally eliminates the post-evaluation billing surprise.
Completely.
But I want to pivot to the smaller organizations because the sources made a brilliant point here. When you hear about predictive algorithms and automated pre-authorizations, it sounds like you need a Silicon Valley tech budget just to survive a workers' comp claim in 2026.
Which is intimidating for a mid-sized company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you don't actually need that budget. The low-tech approach can be incredibly potent.
It absolutely can. And in some ways, it is actually more resilient because it relies on human accountability rather than algorithmic assumptions.
Yes.
For smaller organizations, the defense strategy is absolutely locked on the fundamentals. We are talking about pristine documentation and rigorous targeted staff training.
The people actually keying the data into the system need to intimately understand the mechanics of the 2026 rules.
Right. If your front desk staff doesn't understand the tiers, you're doomed.
The sources mention the power of simple checklists, which I absolutely love. A 10-cent laminated checklist on a clipboard can outmaneuver $1 million predictive algorithm if the administrative staff actually follows it with discipline.
That's so true.
Check the date of injury. Verify the new 2026 specific ML series code. Confirm the page count attestation is physically attached to the file. Done. It's so simple, but it stops the error before it ever enters the digital ecosystem.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, whether you are utilizing a $1 million artificial intelligence suite to flag anomalies, or just, a printed checklist at the front desk, the underlying philosophy is identical.
Proactive interception.
Proactive interception. Identifying an unintentional coding error internally before you hit submit to the clearinghouse costs an organization perhaps 5 minutes of an administrator's time.
Peanuts.
Right. But dealing with that exact same error after it triggers an automated external audit, that costs thousands of dollars, requires pulling historical records, and delays a human being's medical claim for months.
It's crazy. In a highly regulated environment, discipline and consistency are the ultimate cost control mechanisms, period.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring it all home for you listening.
Right.
The 2026 fee schedule changes were designed to be the ultimate fix, right? To impose standardization, transparency, and predictability on the total wild west of medical legal costs.
That was the dream.
But the reality on the ground is that the transition phase is an absolute minefield of differing interpretations, API failures, and legacy software traps. The dispute tax is as real as ever, it just looks different now.
It's wearing a different hat.
Exactly. So to survive and protect your organization's bottom line, you cannot be passive. You have to verify your systems, and your clearinghouses are actually speaking the 2026 language. You have to train your staff to intercept errors proactively, whether through high-end analytics or the mighty laminated checklist.
All hail the clipboard.
Right. And you have to actively build a network of trusted, compliant providers who actually understand the new rules of engagement.
And as you evaluate your own systems and networks, I really want to leave you with a broader question to consider.
Go for it.
We have discussed how the ultimate goal of the 2026 fee schedule is total, rigid standardization of financial costs. But at what point does strict algorithmic billing collide with the highly individualized, inherently chaotic nature of human medical injuries?
Ooh, that's a great point.
Right. A human body recovering from trauma is not a standardized product. Every injury, every psychological response, and every path to recovery has unique nuances.
It doesn't always fit into Tier 1 or Tier 2.
Exactly. So, are we moving toward a future where a system designed to eliminate disputes over money inadvertently creates a massive parallel universe of disputes purely over rigid coding?
Which is exactly what we're seeing right now.
Right. Are we actually solving the friction of workplace injuries, or are we just trading medical arguments for software arguments?
That is the billion-dollar question. Are we fixing the system or just digitizing the disagreement? It's wild to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you, double-check your software APIs, and as always, keep digging deeper. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening to Workers Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe and share with fellow doctors. Stay informed and keep making a difference in your patient's care.